Well, I love you guys too. Just because we're in Middletown, I can say that, right? Man, it is so good. It is so good to be back home for once, isn't it? Wow. We had an amazing crowd here. We have an amazing crowd here. We had hundreds of people outside that couldn't even get in, and I'm just so grateful to Middletown for welcoming me home. It is good to be here. Thank you, guys. God bless you. Now, we're going to get a good fried bologna sandwich right now. All right, this is the guy who makes it. All right, before we get started here, I have to say a few things. First of all, I want to take a moment to thank some outstanding Republican leaders that we have today. If you can stand to be recognized, I'd appreciate it. Attorney General Dave Yost. Where's Dave? Okay. The great congressman representing Middletown, Ohio, Warren Davidson. Where's Warren? We've got the Ohio GOP chairman. I call him Alex T. I'm probably going to butcher your name, Alex. Alex Triantafilou. Pretty good? Got it. All right. I've learned. Of course, the next senator for the United States of Ohio, Bernie Moreno. Don't get too excited. This is my event, not Bernie's event. We got Orlando Sanza, a great congressional candidate, got a good chance of winning. A very tough race. If you can help out Orlando, please do. And look, every single one of these officials, state and local, if I didn't see anybody or didn't remember anybody, I apologize. We've got a great slate of state and local officials who are ready to make this state and this country great again. God bless you guys. God bless you for your service, and thank you for stepping up. And I gotta say hello, Middletown, Ohio. Hello to the great Middletown Middies. I'm so grateful to be here. I'm so grateful for this turnout. You know, so many of you know my story, but I graduated from Middletown, Ohio School in 2003, 21 years ago. And a lot of you know the story of my family. A lot of you, I mean, hell, a lot of you are my family, actually. We're probably, if you count fourth and fifth cousins, half of you are probably related to me in this room. But, you know, this town was so good to me, and I could tell so many stories about, you know, my mamaw, my grandmother. I could tell stories about my mom and my sister. I could tell stories about Aunt Wee. I know Aunt Wee's here. We've got so many great, I think all those people are here, actually. I think Cheryl, where's Cheryl? You here, Cheryl? I love you, Cheryl. My stepmom. We just got so many good people who've been so good to me. But even if you cast a wider net, you know, Ron Selby was my math teacher in high school. Ron's got to be around here somewhere. I know he is. Now, I will tell a story. Now, I don't know if this story is actually true or if it's just the legend of Ron Selby. But Ron, if it's not true, don't tell me, because I've gone 21 years believing it, and I don't want to be contradicted now. But you know, the story is that at some point, Ron, of course, was a tough teacher. He demanded a lot of his students, and I was a beneficiary of that. But the story goes that at one point, Ron Selby had a student who really didn't want to take one of those world-famous Ron Selby math final exams. And so somebody called in a bomb threat to Middletown, Ohio School. So everybody goes outside, of course. Everybody remembers, was a student at one point or another. Well, you get a bomb threat, you got to go stand outside. The fire department comes. But Ron was really pissed off that somebody was messing with his schedule. So he walked to the kid's locker, got what was allegedly the bomb, threw it in a trash can, and said, I know this kid, he's not smart enough to make a bomb. Let's get back to school. That's the legend of Ron Selby. I could go through half an hour and longer just talking about so many of you who made me who I am, and I'm so grateful to you. And I said at the RNC convention, which was the craziest speech and the craziest environment I've ever given, it's like all of you times 100 people, right? They were just as excited as you guys are, times about 100 people. You could barely hear yourself think, but I said, I will never forget where I came from. Ladies and gentlemen, I came from Middletown, Ohio. I am proud of it, and I will never forget where I came from. And in fact, I might make the Secret Service take me to Central Pastry afterwards to get some. I'm dead serious. They get nervous. They do not like unexpected. And I love Milton's too, of course. Both. I love both. But Milton's has expanded a little bit. I feel like you can get Milton's not just at the place that's there on what is that, Roosevelt? I feel like you can get Milton's anywhere now, or at least a lot of other places. So it's cast a wider net. Anyway, I'm going to talk about donuts all day. You can tell what I skipped lunch, so my mind's on donuts here. But I I'll tell you another story. My mamaw was just an incredible woman, and a lot of you knew her, and a lot of you knew her personally. And I talked at the RNC convention, and I'll repeat this story just because I think it illustrates how tough she was. That, mamaw died in 2005, and I was a United States Marine at that point, and I was just about to leave for Iraq. And when Aunt Wee and the rest of us went through her things, they discovered 19 loaded handguns in mamaw's. That is not a made up, no, that's. That's right, that's right. Well, when she introduced herself, sir, she is an Appalachian American, and when she introduced herself to my uncle, my Aunt Wee's husband, for the first time, she said, "I'm from Breathitt County, Kentucky, where a woman isn't fully dressed without her gun." So that was mamaw's attitude. And she was tough, and she was disciplined, and she is the reason why I've had so many of the good opportunities that I've had in my life. But people don't realize she was an incredibly sweet and kind and caring person too. And I'll never forget, I was probably 10 or 11 years old, and she picked me up from school, and there was just this very, I'd never seen this person. She was probably 14 or 15, young girl who was sitting in the back of the car, and she was clearly a little freaked out. And I'm going to get emotional telling this story. And I don't think that I've ever told this story before, but, mamaw said, I said, "Who is this person, who's in our car?" And mamaw said, "Don't worry about it, none of your business." And I said, "Okay, I'll shut up." And eventually we dropped her off, and then we went back home, and I asked mamaw, "Well, who was that?" And she said, "Well, that was a little girl, and I guess there was some pretty bad abuse in her house. And when that little girl ran away from home and tried to find a safe space, she asked, 'Where could I go?' And everybody said, 'You can go to Bonnie Vance's house.'" And that is the mamaw, but that is the Middletown that I knew. You guys were always so good to me. I could talk about any number of public school teachers, from Ron Selby to a number of others. I could talk about people who looked after us when we were riding our bikes around. Mamaw was, she was always worried about safety, but she was never that worried about safety in Middletown, Ohio, because she trusted the people who lived here, and she knew they were good human beings who would look after all of us. They would look after all their kids and grandkids. I.O. Now, I got to be careful about that, because Michigan is one of the most important battleground states. So I cannot give the state of Michigan any reason to vote against the Trump-Vance ticket. We got to work hard for every single vote. But look, my point in telling some of these stories is just that I love every one of you, and I love this town, and I'm so grateful to have been formed by it, because I wouldn't be who I was without it. And people will sometimes say, "Well, you had a tough life." And in some ways, things weren't always easy, but a lot of you will know, a lot of you read my book, my life wasn't all that different from a lot of people who grew up in Middletown, Ohio. It was tough, but it was surrounded by loving people, and it was surrounded by something that, if we don't fight, is not going to be around for the next generation of kids, and that's opportunity. Middletown had opportunity, and we got to make sure it's there for the next generation. When President Trump asked me to be his running mate, I really had no idea what was coming. What happened is, I left my home in Cincinnati, so we live not too far from here, about a 35-minute drive, 45 minutes depending on traffic. And we went to Milwaukee on Monday morning, and I had no idea. I thought maybe he was going to ask me, but I thought I might ask somebody else. There were a lot of good guys running. Marco Rubio, a dear friend of mine, really great public servant, a number of other folks as well. So I had no idea what was coming. And when the president called me and asked me, he said, would you like to run as my vice presidential running mate? I said, well, yeah, of course, right? What do you, we didn't come all this way to say no. But he did something that was really amazing afterwards. He said, well, what do you think about this statement I'm about to put out? Of course, he put it out on social media. It's one of the things I love about President Trump is that he speaks directly to people. He doesn't allow a bunch of consultants to filter him. He is who he is, and that's why a lot of us love him. But he's talking about this statement, and I've got him on speakerphone, and my kid's in the background, my 7-year-old son. We've got 3 kids, and our 7-year-old is our oldest. His name is Ewan. And Ewan is talking in the background of Pokemon or some other God-forbidden subject. I'm like, son, I love you, but could you please? This is the most important phone conversation I've ever gotten. So please stop talking about Pikachu for 1 second. Let me take his phone call. And my son comes over to the phone, and the president hears him, and President Trump says, who is that? And I said, that's my 7-year-old son. And he says, well, put him on the phone. I'm like, oh, God. Here it is. He's going to offer it and take it back because my 7-year-old is going to say something really weird right now. And he reads off the statement. He reads where he talks about my military service and my business background. He says, young man, what do you think about that? Do you like what I said about your dad? And my son goes, girl. And then that's it. And that was the endorsement he needed. The statement went out 3 minutes later. But that is the kind of guy that Donald Trump is, and that's the guy that the media doesn't let you see. He actually cares about people's families. He cares about my family, but he cares about your family too. And he wants to believe that his generation left this country off in a better place than when they found it. That's why he's done this. I mean, I'll talk about myself all day, but let's talk about the man who was a business leader who had billions of dollars, who didn't need any of the sacrifices that public service created, and yet he went out there and he did it anyway. That's the type of people we want to become public servants, and thank God he served for 4 years as President of the United States. And now, ladies and gentlemen, after 4 years of Joe Biden's presidency, or whoever actually is calling the shots in Joe Biden's White House, are we ready to re-elect President Donald J. Trump again? Now, when I was researching what I would say at the RNC, and I mostly write my own stuff. I'm not going off a teleprompter right now. You can probably tell that. The president actually came up, he called me right before I went on and gave my speech. And he said, JD, you're going to do great. Just give me a little pep talk. You're going to be wonderful. The crowd out there is great. Just go out there and speak from your heart. And I said, sir, that's right. That's exactly what I'm going to do. But got to be honest with you, if I totally screw it up, it's too late. No takebacks, right? You've already asked me, I've already accepted, no takebacks. So this speech is just going to be icing on the cake. Thank you, ma'am. God bless you. I was. But here's the thing. I was researching what I was going to say about the president, and I realized that over a lifetime of business leadership, and then, of course, a few years of public service, the country has made a lot of stupid decisions, and President Donald Trump was right about every single one being a mistake. And just you go back to 1994, I was a 3rd grader at Roosevelt Elementary School on Central Avenue, which doesn't exist anymore. We've got some Roosevelt people in here, God bless you. And 1994, this country gave a sweetheart trade deal to Mexico that sent hundreds of thousands of good manufacturing jobs, many of them in our communities, to Mexico. That was a bad idea. We shouldn't have done it, and Donald Trump said it was a bad idea, right? The current administration, by the way, supported it. In 2000, towards the end of the 1990s, I should say, we gave a sweetheart trade deal to the communist Chinese. We allowed them to build their middle class off the backs of the American middle class. And you know who supported it? The current people in power. You know who opposed it? Donald J. Trump. And in 2003, and look, it was Republicans and Democrats, a lot of people supported this. I'm not just beating up on the other side, but in 2003, we went to war in Iraq, and remember, it was supposed to be just a few weeks, and then everything would be over. And I was an 18-year-old kid. I supported it, and I was wrong. And you know who was right? President Donald J. Trump. He knew. He somehow knew, even though he was a real estate developer in New York, that this thing would become a quagmire. It would cost thousands of lives and trillions of dollars. And I think we want the kind of president who sees around corners, who doesn't follow the stupid conventional wisdom right off the cliff, who fights for American citizens, puts them first, and has the wisdom to know how to lead this country. That's right. He probably does have an IQ of 210, but don't tell him that. Don't tell him that. So, the problem is, when our leadership makes all these dumb decisions, we know exactly who suffers the consequences. It's the people right here in this room and the communities that we live in. So I want to say, and I know there's some TV cameras here, and I'm sure this rally is being covered in any number of media channels. I want to talk about the future, and I want to talk about what President Trump and Vice President Vance ticket will mean for the American people, who we're going to fight for, and how exactly we're going to do it. So let's start with who we're going to fight for. Number one, we're going to fight for every single worker in this country. If you work hard and play by the rules, you ought to be able to put a good dinner on the table and send your kids to whatever vacation and whatever school you want to. Work hard and play by the rules, you get a good life. It's that simple. We're going to fight for every single parent to send their kids to a school where they get a good education and not an indoctrination. Right? Now what? Thank you. Now, I got a great education at Middletown High School. I graduated in 2003. I joke that I got a PhD, a public high school diploma, and I'm very proud of it. And there are great school teachers in public and private schools all across our country, but for some reason, the Federal Department of Education is trying to lean into indoctrination at our schools instead of teaching, reading, writing, and arithmetic at our schools. Let's get back to common sense for our teachers and the students they depend on. God bless you, sir. Now look, we fight for the grandmothers who are raising, and the grandfathers and the aunts and the uncles who are raising a generation of grandkids that they didn't expect to raise. That is who we represent, and that is who we fight for. And one of the coolest things, my book came out in 2016, and one of the coolest things about my book is I heard from a lot of Americans from all walks of life, but especially from Black Americans who would come up to me and say, our story is your story. Whether it's the drug epidemic or whether it's this epidemic of crime and violence that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris unleashed in our country, we have got a lot of grandparents, white, black, and every skin color, that are raising kids that they didn't expect to raise. And they're doing it because it's the right thing to do, and they do it because they love their communities. My message to them is simple. I will fight for you, because if it wasn't for a grandma like that, I would not be standing here today getting to run as your next Vice President of the United States. And and to and to those grandmas and grandpas, the nanas, the mamas, and the papas, let me just say, from a kid who was, not as grateful as I should have been when I was 15 and 16 years old. Kids, when they're that age, I hear they're not that grateful. I'm sure I'll learn it the hard way here in a few years. But let me just say that from the bottom of my heart, thank you. You may never hear it from the kid that you're raising, but trust me, in their heart, they appreciate it, and they know they wouldn't be anywhere without you. So God bless you guys for stepping up. God bless you, and thank you. We're going to fight for the energy worker in this country who doesn't understand why Kamala Harris and Joe Biden want to buy energy from tin-pot dictators all over the world, but won't buy it with our own citizens, from our own citizens, and from the hands and from our own land. Drill, baby, drill. It's a very, very simple concept, but it's profound because we've got great energy workers in Pennsylvania. We've got great energy workers in Ohio and all across our country. They want to do a good job. They want to earn a reasonable wage, and they want to power the American economy. Why don't we have a president that lets them do exactly that, ladies and gentlemen? Unleash American energy, drill, baby, drill, and let's turn the page on this craziness. And it's not just about the energy workers, it's about workers all across our country because, I happen to believe in this crazy thing that we ought to make more of our own stuff in this country, right? And I know President Trump agrees. But think about this. You know where 95% of the ibuprofen, Advil, 95% of it, you know where it's manufactured? China. You know where the gross majority of the antibiotics that we put in the bodies of our children come from? China. Now, I don't know if you were alive the past 5 years, but do you remember maybe why we shouldn't trust the Chinese attitude towards public health? What? I got to be honest with you. I don't trust a damn plastic toy coming from China. I sure as hell don't trust the drugs that we put in the bodies of our children. Let's make our own stuff, my friends. But you can't manufacture anything unless you've got low-cost energy, which we've got it. We are sitting on the Saudi Arabia of natural gas. The next 100 years, we could be energy dominant, which helps our people pay lower energy costs. It helps our citizens who work in the energy sector, and it helps our manufacturers make more of our own stuff and become more self-reliant in our own country. It's a win-win. We just got to get the current crop of crazies out of there and replace them with President Trump. That's right. We do need to do that. We need voter ID in this country, ladies and gentlemen. If you're going to cast a ballot, show a piece of identification. It is the weirdest thing to me. Democrats say that it is racist to believe, well, they say it's racist to do anything. I had a Diet Mountain Dew yesterday and one today. I'm sure they're going to call that racist too, but it's good. I love you guys. But these people were telling jokes up in the front row. You guys might not be able to hear it, but I'm getting caught up in it. But look, here's the very simple thing. We believe that we want to make more of our own stuff, and we believe that we want to have secure elections, and we believe we want to have schools that don't indoctrinate our children. That's not racist, ladies and gentlemen. It is common American Middletown sense, and I'm proud to be from this town and to take the wisdom from it. Now, let me talk just a little bit about how we're going to do it. The number one thing that we're going to do, because you can't do anything unless you get there to govern, is we are going to win this election, ladies and gentlemen. Over the next 4 years, we are going to do a lot of good for people all over this country. Well, sir, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Knock on wood, we got to win this race first. But to get there, the next 4 months, we've got to do everything that we can. And I'd ask you, all of you, if you can find something to do to get involved, please do it. There are doors that we can knock on. There are people that we need to deliver to the polls. There are people who are going to vote for President Trump and Vice President Vance and for Bernie Moreno, but we got to get them to the polls, right? So that's one thing you can do, is remind your friends to get out there and vote and make sure they get to the polls. The second thing that we have to do is push back on every channel that we can. The media is never going to be fair to President Donald J. Trump, but you're going to be fair. So use the voice that you have. Use it on Facebook and Instagram. Go on social media and actually make the case for President Trump and Vice President Vance. That is the thing that every single one of you can do. And if you take the people in this room and you magnify it by 100, which you can do with your own platforms and your own voices, that is way more powerful than the lying media and the corrupt Democratic establishment. Let's get to work, ladies and gentlemen. Let's win this thing. I would not be here if it were not for the generosity and the incredible opportunity of this country. And I just want every single kid, every single parent to know that because they live in America, they can dream big dreams. I remember, my friends, so many moments in Middletown, Ohio, riding my bike down, Central, which Mama was kind of okay with, and then down University, which she was not okay with. If you got kids and you know this town, you know what I'm talking about. But I just remember looking to the future. And the thing that I wanted most in the whole world, I just wanted to be able to give my kids a little bit of stability and comfort that I didn't have when I was growing up. That's all I really wanted. And when I think about the American dream, I don't think about writing a book. I don't think about becoming a business guy. I don't even think about running for vice president of the United States, even though it is pretty cool to do that. I think about becoming a husband and a father, and that is the way in which this community and this country was best to me. And while we're talking about it, did my wife do a good job the other night or what? Didn't she do great? She is. There she is. She's too embarrassed to stand up, but get used to it, honey. It's gonna be 4 months of me embarrassing you. That's what we do. But I just think, when I consider how good this country has been to me, I just think about how much I owe to it. That gratitude should come with a sense of responsibility. And when I think about Kamala Harris, who I guess is our vice presidential candidate officially, but I guess she's going to run for president now because Joe Biden dropped out of the race. When I see... I'm going to take bets here. I'm going to start a betting pool just in this auditorium. But I wonder, when I see her give a speech, and she talks about the history of this country, not with appreciation, but with condemnation. And look, of course, every country, just like every family, certainly mine, has its pockmarks, right? Not everything's perfect. It's never going to be. But if you want to lead this country, you should feel grateful for it. You should feel a sense of gratitude. And I never hear that gratitude come through when I listen to Kamala Harris. And that's what we've got to do. Fundamentally, you're going to agree, hopefully, since you're here, you're going to agree, hopefully, with most of what President Trump and I want to do. We want to... We're going to drill, baby, drill. We're going to shut down that border. We're going to put America's citizens first because that's what America's citizens are going to elect us to do. It's common sense. Thank you, sir. But even when you disagree with us, nobody's ever perfect. No politician is perfect, certainly not me, but you deserve to be led by people who are grateful for the community they came from, who are grateful for this country and its boundless opportunities, who are grateful for the service of our veterans and the people who put their lives on the lines, from police and firemen on down. I believe that you deserve to be led by people who are grateful. And I know that President Trump is grateful for this country, and I know that I am, and I know we're never going to stop fighting to give you the same opportunities that we got. That's what this whole thing's all about. Now, look, I'm going to go really off script here, and all my communication staffers back there are going to get a little nervous. I was hanging out with my kids yesterday. We're actually swimming at the swimming pool, and somebody brought over their phone and showed me the news that Joe Biden had announced he was dropping out of this race. And look, I don't like Joe Biden, and I don't like his policies, and I'm not a Democrat primary voter. I never have been, and I never will be, unless something goes really wrong, ladies and gentlemen. But look, what is going on in this country is absolutely disgraceful. Let me get a little philosophical here. I imagine most of you did not vote for Joe Biden, and if you did, welcome aboard. We're glad to have you. But if you want to run for president, you've got to make your case to voters. You make your case to voters. That's what President Trump did, even though he had already been the president. And even though he was by far the most popular person in the Republican Party, he ran for the Republican presidential nomination. He faced some good competition, and he made his case to voters. The idea of selecting the Democrat Party's nominee because George Soros and Barack Obama and a couple of elite Democrats got in a smoke-filled room and decided to throw Joe Biden overboard, that is not how it works. That is a threat to democracy, not the Republican Party, which is fighting for democracy every single day. This is not okay, ladies and gentlemen. You cannot, for 3.5 years, take a guy who clearly didn't have the mental capacity to do the job. Kamala Harris lied about it. My Senate Democratic colleagues lied about it. The media lied about it. Every single person who saw Joe Biden knew that he wasn't capable of doing the job. And for 3 years, they said nothing until he became political dead weight. That is not a way to run a country. That is not a way to run a political party. That is an insult to voters. And so, and I really believe, even though I think the leadership of that party is corrupt, I really believe that most Americans are fundamentally good, whether they're Democrat, Republican, or independent. My life has taught me to put my faith in people because they put their faith in me and gave me a lot of opportunities. So my message to Democrats who are disgusted by this process, disgusted by how anti-democratic it is, you are welcome in the Republican Party, where we think we should persuade voters and not lie to voters. Come on in, the water's warm. Thank you, guys. We love you too, ma'am. God bless you. I just got to say, this entire system of ours is about, you got to persuade voters. You got to win their votes. You don't decide who the president is in smoke-filled rooms with billionaires and senior elected officials. You let the people decide. That's what we believe in this room, and that's what we're going to fight for, I promise you. So and by the way, thinking about takebacks, I was told I was going to get to debate Kamala Harris, and now President Trump's going to get to debate her. I'm kind of pissed off about that, if I'm being honest with you. So I just so I just want to say to Middletown and a lot of forgotten communities all across our country, because we really have been forgotten in Middletown, Ohio. They think that we're backwards. They think that we're bad people. They think that we don't know how to do anything, and we do, ladies and gentlemen. This is where things are made. This is the source of America's greatness. But I just want to say, I promise you this. I will fight every single day to restore an America that works for Americans. I will fight for policies that lower the costs of your groceries, lower the costs of your housing, make life more affordable, not less affordable as it has been under the Democrats. I will fight for energy policies that make it easy to heat your home in the winter and cool it in the summer, because I lived with a mamaw who sometimes worried whether there was money enough to heat the house in the winter. I will fight for every single one of your children when they lay their head down at night before they fall asleep to dream about the future as one of hope and possibility. Your children deserve the inheritance of this country. And the inheritance of this country is that their lives will be better than their parents, and their children's lives even better than that. That is the American dream that we fight for, and I will never stop fighting for that American dream. And I really believe this, my friends. The best way to do it, the best way to bring energy and food and housing costs down, the best way to seal that border and stop the fentanyl and the poison from coming into our communities, the best way to bring common sense back to our education system and our foreign policy is to re-elect Donald J. Trump, President of the United States. And you know, it's so funny. The media says, well, you know, JD said some critical things about President Trump 10 years ago. And Kamala Harris, of course,